Well, good morning and welcome back. Have I got a super cool video for you today? I'm going into all my favorite homeschool curriculum picks for kindergarten, preschool, kindergarten, all the way up to grade 4, 5, 6, around there. Super excited. Two things to mention is one, I'm not including any of my STEM products because they have not arrived yet. Two, I'm not including a gifted curriculum because it has not arrived yet, but when it comes, I will show it to you and give you a look through it. I have a very eclectic, secular Christian approach to this. So I will also be showing you all the secular materials, all the Christian materials, and what to avoid if you are not in one camp or the other, or if you're like me where you're like, I'll show you what I'm doing as well. I'll tell you what I'm not doing either. I'm going to show you a ton of homeschool curriculum products as well, because I'm going to show you everything that I plan to be using, pretty much everything that I plan to be using for the next few years here. Now, of course, if I get knee deep in something, like last year I thought I was going to use all about reading, and I did for a while, and then I realized it was a little too dry, not exactly what I was looking for very specific reasons that I've gotten into before. So it's still a great program, but I just switched off it and I'm using something else. All right, so first up, every day I try to give you something free or some helpful advice. So two things, we're gonna talk study units. So I have one study unit. If you are doing a study unit on any big famous ruler, okay, or anyone who's ruled anything or whatever, like for example, Queen Elizabeth II, my question would be, what did she do right during her reign and what did she do wrong? Because no matter how much you like someone, if anyone who's been in power at all has done, I dare say any human has done things wrong, but when you're in power, you have a good chance of it being magnified. So what did she do right? What did she do wrong? And you can do that for any hero at all. So it can be like a summer project, an end of the year project, just a whatever research project to do. A second thing I would do is think of a commonplace book. A commonplace book has been around since ancient history, I believe. And what it is any facts or anything interesting or anything new that a student has learned or a person has learned, they put in a commonplace book. They have a book and they write down what they've learned, and it's a commonplace book. So a summer project could be a commonplace book even for young kids, because it can be, hey, what did you see out on your nature walk? Practice, you know what I mean? Draw it into your commonplace notebook. For example, what did you learn about history that you thought was interesting, or math, or what we talked about today? What during the day did you find interesting? Write it down, or that you think it's important to remember, or that something new you have learned. Write it down in your commonplace book. So to keep things less complicated, instead of having one book for every subject, just try that for summer. Try that for summer, just a couple ideas. All right, time to get to some products. Now remember, as I go through individual subjects, I'm gonna be showing you products I'm gonna be using. But at the beginning, I also have a big stack of products for you. Okay, storytime chess, because we're going to be learning chess. I've already started, and it's amazing to see your 5-year-old want to play chess and to understand how it is. It's because there's a beautiful book in here that explains each piece, each character, and has a story that goes along with it so that they can remember and they can practice it. All right, storytime chess. Next up, we got affirmation cards. We got affirmation cards, but I am switching them out for things I can consider truths, but here, I am enough, for example. So they're just better affirmations than I could come up with. Like I couldn't come up with that great of ones, and these were better. Next up, we got manners of the week. I found different manner cards that I think I would have gone with for little children, but these can be used for any ages. These are by Memorial Press, but like clean up after yourself. And then on the back, it's got information as to why. So this, for example, was be patient, right? Be patient. And then on the back, it's got some tips as to why you do it and how you should do it. Like I said, for younger children, I did find better ones, and they are on the website, that I would have gone with if I were purchasing again. But these are week by week what we kind of focus on. All right, because I'm huge into vocabulary, there's a couple subjects I want my kids to be really good at: math, science, and vocab, and reading. Because I want them to be not intimidated. I want them to be in room with presidents or, Nobel Prize winners or whoever, not defined by anything, but still people. I want them to be able to be in a room with any person and to be able to understand what they're saying and what they're talking about. So we cover, right now we are on, I don't know if we did or not, like respect and polite. So it's an okay vocab book. It's my Epic Life word book. The reason I like it is because it is good for little kids. Is it the best book I've ever found? No. And I'm still searching for a dictionary. So if someone has a dictionary you love, let me know, because looking up a few words every day will eventually be part of it. Early Reader's Bible. What I like about it is it has exercises in here that get you used to what to do if you are worried about something. You can ask God, you can talk to God about it. So I like that. And so this is what we're slowly working our way through. Another product we're going to be using, this is teaching social and emotional IQ. So what to do when you're sad, what to do when someone else is sad. So they're nursery rhyme stories, and as you go through them, they have different tips and advice. This is from Dash Into Learning, but this is Dash Into Happy, but Dash Into Learning, still same company, but they call it Dash Into Happy, and what it is when someone's scared, what are they doing in the book to help the other person that they know is scared? How are they showing comfort? What would you do if you were scared? So it's just a bunch of nursery rhymes. It's got about 5 books, and it just talks about what to do in those situations and getting them to notice, hey, what is that person feeling? Can you tell what that person's feeling, and stuff like that. Next up, something we do almost every day, all of these things, is basically the Brain Challenger. The Brain Challenger is, so it deals with critical thinking, concentration, everyday knowledge, visual perception, math, and geometry. But essentially what I like about it is some of the puzzles are pretty easy. Some of the kids love this, my kids don't really love it, but why we do it is because because you have to sit down and calm down and actually and match 1 to 1 and 1 to 1 and go through and do the puzzles. So that to me, very important to be able to sit and slow down and focus. All right, so let's get to, now remember, I got products as we go through my piles here, okay? Oh, one more thing I want to tell you, which is a good book, is if you're looking to intro readers and maybe Toad and Frog isn't doing it for you, or maybe you like Toad and Frog, this is Mr. Putt and Tabby. They have a series of books, Mr. Putt and Tabby. They're pretty entertaining, pretty good. I like them. I think they're good additions to, there's not a lot of read alouds I like at this age. I think a lot of read alouds are stupid. I just don't like them. But this Mr. Putter and Tabby I think are pretty enjoyable. All right, we're starting off with music. So what am I doing for music? So music, there's 3 steps. There's listen, learn, and play. So listen is we do David Garrett because we're listening to instrumental music, and he replays a lot of the classics. Like he replays Beethoven and Bach, and his number 5 is I think fantastic, but he does it at such a high energy level. He also replays rock songs, but he does them with a violin in a classical type environment, if you will, in an instrumental environment. And I think it's great. I think it's fantastic. And I think that's one of the reasons that my kids love it, is because they're interesting songs. I also chose as many high energy classical songs as I could. And beyond that, and I played them in the car. I played them in the car for the longest time. And then beyond that, we got like Jurassic World, like soundtracks, Jurassic World, Jaws. And then there's like Meatloaf, I would do anything for love, right? Because it's got the piano going on in there. So any exciting music we listen to, as far as classical goes. And same with a bunch of classical music that is very exciting and high energy and things like that we also listen to as well. So one of the things you can do for music is these cards, but they're music, but they're also art as well. And so you can go through, so these are artists and composers. So they have, I love their science cards. Their science are huge, so I ordered all their cards, and it's got a couple, like it's got Beethoven in here, Bach, so it's got a couple composers, but not that many. I'm still working on trying to find a book that has like the artists and a little bit on them for children, so that it's something we can read and study that day. Like maybe that day, some people do it in morning basket, we do it during breakfast, pull out and be like, okay, let's talk about Bach. Do you know where Bach was born? Or, Beethoven, we went and visited where he was born, and then we talk about, and then we play a song from him or something like that, right? And we talk, and I point out interesting parts about Beethoven, because I believe it was Beethoven that was very interested in scat humor, poop humor, if you will. So I point out interesting things to help them remember, like interesting pictures to help them be able to remember interesting things about that composer. So I still haven't found the winning system for that yet. And then as far as composing goes, every day I want to hear some composition from one of my 3 children who loves music and loves playing it. I want to hear some composition. And then when they get older, then I will transition into more structured playing. But now for the first, I would say 8 years on this earth, just enjoying composing music. So there we go. Art is very quick. Art is very interesting. Oh my gosh, do I love this series. So now remember, in the art program, I talked all about art and different options. Remember, these cards, these are what they were made for, okay? So it's got a picture, it's got the artist there, and then on the back, it's got general information about the artist. Ooh, my stacks are falling. Okay, so these, oh my gosh, so great. We're on the kindergarten one. I believe they have a preschool one, but we are on the kindergarten one, and she is your teacher, and she teaches you how to become a professional artist, episode after episode, and she goes through and shows you how to draw, and how to mix colors, and what primary colors are, and how to make secondary colors with primary colors. And Lindsay Volan's her name, and these are her DVDs, and I think she is just wonderful. Art, if you're just going down, you got a kindergartner, this would be your book, A Child's Introduction to Art, or grade 1, grade 2, whatever. But see how it's not, I mean, you can use it for older children, but see, you picture and then you just read that to little children. You can use it for older kids. The problem is that there's only like 20 pages in here, or I mean, there's more than that, but there's only about like, say, you know, I don't know, 20 artists that they focus on, or 20 pictures. So they don't focus entirely on an artist. So you'll just outgrow that very quickly, but then you can move into Children's Encyclopedia of Art, and it is pretty sweet. And this deals with different areas or genres of art, okay? And very cool. I have showed you in the art thing, I showed you a bunch of different curriculums, but these are particular to what we're doing. Also, I have a child who's interested in drawing, so we are pursuing that. We are doing drawing with children, teaching them to become a professional drawer, artist, I guess, whose medium is drawing, a professional drawer. And then I also have a child who is interested in a variety of art. So we will be doing a variety of things, and he really wants to get into pottery. So I bought a pottery wheel, and we are going to be utilizing that. So that is the main thing when they're young, is I want them to have passions, whether they have mental health problems, whether they have autism, whether they are quote unquote normal, whatever you want to call it, getting a passion for your children in order to pursue, in order to rest their soul. My husband brought up an interesting point. When we talk about stimming and something autism kids do, and they do it all different ways, right? My husband's like, what do you notice when he's not stimming? What activities is he doing when he's not stimming? And he's like, just think about this. He goes, I think when he's not stimming, that means he is fully engaged in the activity. And so I was like, maybe you're right. Maybe that does provide an outlet for his mind, for his hands, for everything. Those activities that he's engaged in that he's not stimming. So that's just something to think about. What activities are those? And those are the ones that I want to pursue more of, because I think it might be good for him. Again, that's a guess. I'm not an expert, right? Okay, next topic. Boop, boop, boop. We're moving through. Isn't this fun? Now remember, I bought like every curriculum known to man, okay? So when I tell you these are my favorites, I mean, to each his own, but I've gone through and I've shown you option after option after option after option, and these are what I've decided on. So science. Someone asked me, one of the questions is, for kindergarten, is the Focus On series good for kindergarten? Let me pull over all my science stuff. Oh my gosh, it's heavy. Okay, so for kindergarten, I would not use a science curriculum. I think it's kind of wasted. The exception being is Discovering God's World, only because it's very gentle and it teaches you things like if your nose is stuffed, God gave you another way to breathe, and that is through your mouth. So it's not Bible-based, it's God-based, and it's very simple and easy and gentle, and it teaches them things that you'll be able to remind them, like, oh, close your eyes, God gave you eyelids to protect you from dust. Okay, another example of a gentle curriculum, if you want secular, gentle, would be Blossom and Root, very gentle. Those are my opinions. There are other curriculums out there, but they are too intensive. And I feel like in kindergarten, you just have to enjoy life in kindergarten because they're not retaining a ton of information. And I hate wasting like my valuable teaching times if they're not gonna retain it. I would also just pick up a science experiment kit or look up experiments off Pinterest and then say, have them each have a notebook and say like, okay, what do you think's gonna happen? This is your hypothesis. Let's draw what you think's gonna happen, and then afterwards discuss the results. So the Focus On series is the science series that I'm going to be using for my children. You could teach it anytime between K and 4, and it teaches college-age concepts in there. I would not teach in kindergarten. I'm choosing to teach in grade 2 because I want them to remember a lot of it. But what you can start doing are these Focus On readers, and you can go through, I've showed you a million times about the atoms, and it's just very simple teaching you about, it taught me about them. Like I didn't understand a lot of this stuff, and they have them for geology. They are pricey, so do you need them? No, you don't need them. Okay, so science cards, very important, bring up at breakfast. Boom, boom, boom. Start getting these things into their memory. The way this program was designed to use, I don't utilize the program. It's a Christian program, I don't utilize it. It is classical conversations, but they have elements that I think are fantastic. And one of these elements is this. I have not seen anything Christian on these cards that would bother anyone who is secular. I haven't seen it. But so for example, every day for a week, you mention this. Like week 1, this is the card you're supposed to be talking about. Week 2, you move on and every day you mention this card, okay? And on the back it's got information, for example. And then in year 2, you go back, you start back with these cards again so that it's in their long-term memory by the time they get up to where they need to utilize it. So I think that is a fabulous concept. So moving on up, we are talking Dr. Bonafide. I think are fantastic, $60 for all 4 of them, which is the best price I've found. And it just deals with, because we have someone who loves human body, that's what we're talking about. So because we chose the Focus On series and it doesn't need to be taught until anywhere between grade K through 4, and it's 5 different subject areas, we got all these times to pursue what my children love, which is, one of them loves the human body. I also got the human body studying it from the Waldorf way, which again is not secular, not Christian, it's neutral. And I just cannot wait to utilize that as well. And I'll show you a bunch of STEM body stuff that arrived when it comes. So I'm gonna do a whole STEM thing as soon as I move, and which another week or so, and then I will have access to all of that stuff. So moving on top of that, yeah, and then I'm using the Focus On series, okay? So that is my science series, but let me show you a couple other things for science. Human body theater, again, doesn't talk about the age of the earth, but look at that, it's a skeleton who puts on a play, and it just, I would say grade 1 for this book, grade 1 or 2, but yeah, so human body theater, very cool. And then of course, the best book in the world you can get when they are 4, Underwater, Under Earth, written by an artist and a teacher. Look at that, those are all the elements in the earth. I'm telling you, the amount of stuff you just pull out a page and it's got all the animal burrows under here. It's got just all the different, pipes and sewers and roots and trees. A lot of helpful information I think is very cool. Let's talk about an encyclopedia from Usborne that is good for Christian, good for secular as well. Because when it talks about the earth, it does not talk about the age of the earth in here. So that will appeal to a lot of people. So when it does talk about your planet, but it doesn't mention the age of it. So Usborne Children's Encyclopedia, because that's another question someone asked. And they asked it about, I believe, some of the history books. So I will show you through those when we get to that topic. Are we there yet? No. Language arts. Oh my gosh, you're dressed.
My toe.
Oh, come here. Could I give you a hug?
We put them 2.
That's all
And
right.
I can't
You did very good.
feel you on my toe.
Oh. All right, let's talk language arts. Under there, I will do creative problem solving. I will also do Charlotte Mason narration. We will do some recall work, which I talk about it a lot in my language arts stuff, so I give you a lot of tips and information. This is very cool. It's basically creative problem solving with your pencil. So how to stop, so for example, this is create a creature that will survive and it gives you like an inhospitable environment. This is the creature factory. Create a creature with the best survival features out of all the creatures in the world. So it's a creative thing that we're going to be utilizing as well. Plus we have 101 crosswords. There's not a lot of crosswords I can do. Like, I don't know if it's that I accidentally ordered British books or something, but I sit down, I do some of these crosswords and I'm like, what? But this we started with my, when he was 5, and we do it together, and it's 101 crossword puzzles for kids, and it is a very fun activity to do and to practice his letters too. So sometimes I would write letters when he was little and he would write letters. So the police station, so it starts off easy, you got 3 words there, and where do you put them on the crossword? So it's kind of fun. Preschool literacy. Although I did a whole video on elemental phonics, so there's a flaw that bothers me about it, but it does not have it in this book. So this is Get Ready for Reading, and it's by JDA. And so it's got different things like draw a line to match the letters. There is also, let me remind you, there's an entirely free preschool program that you can use that's very fun, and it's video based, but you watch like a 30-minute, very interesting video like on farms or on space. And then you can get books from the library to accompany it. You got crafts to accompany it. There's songs. It's very interesting and it is free. It's from Virtual Creative Kids preschool, so you should definitely use it. It's free for 3 months. So, I mean, I just think it's awesome. So anyway, I will leave a link to that. We are doing a couple different things with a couple different children. I think what I'm going to do though is all of them. We are going to utilize this system from Right Brain Phonics. Okay, so we're going to utilize the Right Brain Phonics system. I'm going to do an easy version of it and see if that works. If I got to go more in depth, then I will, because there's a lot of parts to that system, like the brain integration therapy of getting the two sides to match, but there's some exercises that we will do for that. But essentially, this is what we're going to work on. We're also doing creative writing in the sense that they are telling me stories and I am writing them down for them. And one of the ways to do that is, for example, be like, hey, how about we tell a story about Paw Patrol or something? Start them off like that, and that might help. So the all about writing or handwriting without tears we are doing. And then we are doing Becca readers because I've spoken at length about them because I think they're amazing. They start in grade 1. But you really get into the exciting stuff later on in the grade 1 readers. They're very easy early on. We do them as read-alouds or I read along with them. There's no pressure to learn to read in my house. We just need to cultivate a love of reading, and I read every day to them, every single day. Okay, so that is what we are using, but then also I'm switching to a full language arts curriculum that I believe I'll do with one or both. I have not decided yet, and it is Common Sense Press. It does not start till grade 1, but it has literacy built in. I do a ton of literacy programs, so that's why I always have a lot of book selections I can show you, because I use classical books plus other books, tons of books. What is next? Ooh, history. History is a big one. So I have 2 different questions for history. First, let me show you some history products here. This is the Titanic game. We are utilizing, remember a couple days ago I talked about an overarching theme or goal for your homeschool that you want to implement, and I want to implement playing more games together. And one of them is I get a lot of solo games so we can do it as a team. And this is the Titanic one. Another thing is I like disasters in history. I think it has 8 disasters in history, and it's comics about them, and they're pretty interesting. Next up we got, oh my gosh, could not rave about it more, Growing Up in Early America. So this can be used by anyone. This is definitely Christian. Like, you cannot use it if you are not Christian or you do not believe in God, okay? You cannot use it. It does not have a ton of Bible in here, so that's not the issue. It talks a lot about God in the olden days and what people thought and why they left England and coming. And the stories are very interesting. It's got first-person stories of like Native Americans and what their life was like and how they might have felt, and pilgrims and how they might have felt. And it's very interesting. So back to history. I just have to show you this book because there is under the study units video that I did all about study units, I talked a ton about Titanic because we have a Titanic obsession in our house. Not me personally, I think it's sad, but someone else does. And the only thing I didn't include on the website was his Titanic blanket that he loves. And so I need to put it on the website as well because it can be washed a million times and it's still super soft. So this is Titanic Cat, a very good story. And there's a beautiful Titanic book I have listed on the website under books, under Titanic as well. So let me talk about some history questions I got. If you want to teach history yourself, you need a basic book. Don't worry about teaching American history yourself. You can purchase those separately if you want. Like, they have a ton of programs on American history, but if you want to teach world history, and that's like the history of the world from prehistory on, you need some of these books. Some of them are for secular people and some of them are designed and can be used by Christians. For example, this right here, the Kingfisher, this is new from the Kingfisher book, and I highly recommend it. I was like one of the only people to give it a positive review because no one else has really bought it. It's pretty new. But it talks about its contents in here. Let me show you. So it's got the ancient world, medieval world, the modern world, and it's got a lot of maps and stuff in it. So this can be like your teacher's manual that you make reference to if you are doing your own program. If you're doing other programs, this can be used as a reference. So you pull it out and you're like, hey, we're gonna be talking about the ancient world today, and then it's got some highlights of the ancient world. Okay, so again, this does not talk about the age of the earth at all. So it is good to use if you are Christian or if you are secular. because it also doesn't talk, it talks about religion as it comes up. This is the same. This is just, they just go more in depth with a lot of things. So this is a bigger book. They don't make it anymore. This is the Kingfisher one. You have to buy it used. But again, this one is just as sufficient. So you pull it open and you're like, hey, we're gonna talk about, like, this goes more into depth on stuff, right? Like onto different types of people that were around then. Whereas this may say, you know, during this time period, there were these 3 people apart. This will have a separate section on each. So I personally think this is sufficient, but if you wanna go, because then when you look this up and you're like, hey, medieval things, what can we talk about? And then, or ancient Egypt. Okay, let's talk about ancient Egypt. Then you can look up stories. You can get like Mummy Cat, you can get a bunch of picture books that are super cool that even older kids will like picture books too. They're very interesting and you learn a lot from a lot of them. Will accompany this and can be used alongside that, okay? So this is like, sometimes you're like, it's got a couple pages on like the Mycenaeans. So if you really want to go in depth, then you could get this book, but I just don't know how it would work finding general information about the Mycenaeans, but you would be able to find videos about the Mycenaeans as well. If you are secular and you want to, if you want to have like the age of the earth written in, or the Big Bang Theory or whatever, you can get the timelines of everything. Interesting about the Big Bang Theory is it's just a leading theory. It's not the only theory out there. So it's just one of the more prominent ones. But if you want to, I learned this because I'm creating a prehistory curriculum. But anyway, so the timelines of everything, you can get that book. When on Earth, you cannot get When on Earth if you, unless you skip that section. So I'm big on skipping stuff that you do not like, but if you, whatever, both sides I get it. But so this starts off with, so because it has the birth of the world listed here, you may not want it, but you can also skip that as well, because it's just like written on the one page and I haven't noticed anything else from it. And in here as well, it's got like a lot of the paths they went. And again, this is another good book that you can get as like a reference. This secular, it's Usborne, you cannot get it if you don't want to talk about the age of the earth or evolution or dinosaurs or things like that, then don't get this one. Like if the dinosaur thing doesn't line up, like if the standard view, this is the standard view, I guess you could say, of dinosaurs and when they were on the earth and things like that. So don't get it if you're Christian and you have a problem with the age of the earth and things like that. Okay, now this everyone can get. 35 bucks, definitely get it. The Usborne Beginner's History, because it talks about, they're just very cool. Like, so pull out the Vikings or the Egyptians when you're in there, or castles or whatever, and look at it. Even kids up to age 8, you can glean stuff from this. You know what I mean? It may look like it's a young book, but it just means there's solid information on here that I think is good. All right, so it has the Iron Age, the Stone Age, Romans, a lot of stuff in here. So highly recommend it. This is a child through time. So it is basically, this is her name and she lived during this time period and that's what her life would be like during the time period. Okay, and this was him and this is what his life would be like when he lived during that time period. So this is a child through time. It's a book through children's history. It does not have the age of the earth in here, not that I know, but it starts off with prehistory. There she was with mammoths. That is your first look into it. A Street Through Time, again, open to anybody, does not discuss anything other than showing a street through time, how it changed. So interesting. You can get a lot of these books at the library, but if you want to use them as a spine, and a spine is like you reference it time and time again, then you might want to pick it up. So this is a historian. So this is from Welcome to the Museum series, a series that everyone loves that I don't love. Everyone loves it. I don't love it. I just don't, just because, I mean, it's amazing. I think it's great for older children. But what's interesting, so it's got different pictures of stuff, but I like real photos. Anytime I have a choice between like pictures of animals that people have drawn or real pictures, the exception being Star Wars art, which I know sounds weird. I know that I'm bringing that up, but that's the truth. I love Star Wars art. But I just like the actual real pictures of it. So that's just personal preference. I do not care for this book and everyone loved it and was like, oh my gosh, it's great. So let me show you what I'm going to be doing. Okay, so this is open to everyone. It starts at prehistory. It discusses religion as it comes about. Okay, now it is the snapshots of history. So listen to this. I'm doing it. This is the snapshots of ancient history. And then I am switching, when we get to the next one up, which I believe is medieval, I'm switching to biblioplan. The reason I am is because I just think the stories are pretty interesting. I think it's a good read, but I'm skipping the ancients because it's very Bible based. It's all about like the biblical stories, whereas by the time you get to the medieval days, it's not as much, right? Because the Bible has then stopped, if you will. So it's not as Bible based. So that's why I'm switching, because I think it's a great program. And also what comes along with it is I'm going to be doing the story of our world as well at some point. So hands-on ancient history. So these are just like, even though it's a Christian program, these books do not seem, from what I've read, the craft books they have for each thing are awesome, because it's got like 161, 162 crafts and ideas and foods that you can cook like per history time period. So I think that is super cool, especially when you do biblioplan. It is expensive, but you do not need to buy the entire program. You can just get, this is the book, and I want to say it's from K through, like this is the ancient one for biblioplan. I want to say it is K through 8, I think, and then they have different modules you can buy on top of that if you want. So like for middle school, they have the maps that you can buy and pay additional to it. And then they have like for little kids, they have, you can get the little, it's an extra thing for little kids, but all it is it has questions in it and stuff like that. So I bought it, and you're fine just getting this book. You do not have to get the family guide, which is additional information. Just this book is sufficient. Now again, I bought it, I'm skipping this one. Personal preference, because it's all about the biblical stories in here. And so for me, I'm just not going to teach that. I'm going to switch to, like I said, I'll start with this and I'll switch on. Now do not judge me for my taste and how I do things, and I will not judge you. You can ask me any questions you want, and I will do my best not to judge you, because I don't want the judgment back on me, because I get that I teach in a different way that other people may not. I totally get that. I have a few different American history programs. I bought Sunlight's, I bought a Becca's, I bought a few different, so I have a lot of elements from that, and so I will show you that in separate videos, and you can take a look and see. But those generally don't start till grade 2, grade 3, so math. If you have a child, one of the questions I got is, what if my child cannot recall what's been learned? There's a couple things you can do. First of all, this is just personal opinion and things I have noticed myself. If they're on a healthy diet, because diet can definitely affect your brain and how it's working. I know this personally, I've witnessed it personally in my children. It affects more, I've noticed, neurodiverse children than other children, but it's like within my own family, but it still affects everyone. But it is hugely noticeable in a neurodiverse child in my family. Oh, did I forget to show you this sciencey stuff? I think I forgot to show you sciencey. Quick. Is that a science one? Oh, another science one. Okay, so I have 2 science ones. So this is like, can be considered secular, if you will, or I guess open to everyone. It just doesn't discuss God, but it's basically got all the elements, sorry, I will be quick, in that, and I think it's great along with our Atoms kit, so that even little kids you can pull out all the way up to big kids can learning about these and where we find these elements in day-to-day life. So I love it. It's like $11 for that book. And this is interesting. This is from MasterBooks, I believe, and it's Wonders of Creation. They do have a curriculum that goes along with it, but what is interesting about this, if you're secular, it's tough to get these and separate the Bible from it. I think it would bother you. It doesn't bother me, because if I don't agree with something, I'm just like, I don't think that way, or we don't think that way, or a lot of people think that way, but we don't. Whether it's secular or like Christian, either way. But this is interesting, is that these books have a level 1, level 2, and level 3. So level 1 is for like the basic level for the youngest learners. So as you can see, white is for everybody, yellow is for the next level up, and 3 is, and then it's got different words based on that too that you should be learning. So this is just very interesting. Their books have beautiful photos. Beautiful, like the cave book, amazing. But if you are secular, they will talk about other theories about like fossils and things like that, and the age of the earth and different things like that that you probably definitely won't be okay with. So you may want to skip them, but they are just beautiful photos. That's why I love them. Okay, back to if your kids can't retain math. There could be a disconnection between the right brain and the left brain. You could do right brain phonics, the integration therapy into it. It's an integration to try and connect the right and left hemispheres together. Some kids have it. I want to say, because like everything was made, I guess, for right brain learners, but there's a lot of left brain learners out there. And so that program by Diana something or other, I'll put it on the screen, is made for that. Now, another thing you can do is if they are not doing well on a spiral curriculum or a mastery curriculum, usually I've noticed because more people do spiral, usually if kids have problems on spiral and they switch to mastery, that can be very helpful. It's not usually the other way around because there's just not a ton of people on the mastery programs, right? Like spiral is what's been done in this country, or well, I'm not in that country, but North America. I'm overseas for a couple more weeks, for like ever, okay? So anyway, both sides are right. Both sides have good studies to show why you should use their curriculums. I personally think it's personal preference. I did not do well in math, so I get overwhelmed when I see a spiral. So honestly, I want to cry when I sit down and I see a spiral. Some spiral curriculums upset me more than others because I feel like they're too all over the place. One of the big things between mastery and spiral is that mastery, for example, let me pull out a mastery book and show you. Mastery, for example, you're gonna have like 100 questions, but you do not have to do them all, and you can save them for a review. Okay, so if you have a child that is having problems on a spiral curriculum, you can switch to a mastery curriculum, spiral, and vice versa. Spiral is Saxon, spiral is the good and the beautiful, and you can switch to a mastery curriculum. I recommend these are my top masteries. The reason I don't like any other masteries, and we're using both. I want really strong masters. We're using both of these two programs. Plus, alternately, we also have other stuff we can do as well. Like you can do computer games, there's free ones, there's paid ones, whatever. But what we're doing is, currently I'm kind of using both, but that may change as they get older. But they're both well priced. They're like $50 for the year, which is important, and $18 for any additional child. Yes. Okay, lastly, are we there yet? So I also have two other curriculums that I'm going to show you this week in separate videos. I believe I have a safety curriculum to show you, a physical ed curriculum for you that I'm never using. I looked through it and I was like, oh, those are great ideas. Not using it. But I wanted to show it to you just so you know it is an option. There are physical education curriculums out there. But geography, I am going with a simple geography program at this time. Very simple, and as they get older, we'll do a more in-depth geography program. Then we'll probably switch to Guess Hollow's geography program and go along with that. But first, the program that we are going to do is just basically free. It's from, I forget what it's called, but I'll put it on the screen, Core Knowledge. And we'll start with that in the kindergarten grade 1, whichever one has like an around the world, like, oh, let's talk about Africa, let's talk about Canada, because I was reading through the various countries that I've been to and that I've lived in, and it was accurate enough that I was like, you know what, we'll use this, and with picture books. So for example, Paris, we'll talk about Madeline, and we'll read some Madeline and things like that, because kids of all, like honestly, I think kids of all ages, those books, picture books can appeal to. And we'll do a map, and every time we cover something, we'll put it on the map, which I think is very, very cool. You happen to pick the most beat up looking bananas that I have ever seen, sir.
About to another taken by